Hello, and welcome to the Angus and Pete Show. Views and opinions are strictly those of the presenters and their guests and should not be taken as advice. Goodness knows, we're not qualified to advise you about anything. Side effects may include mild amusement and occasional enlightenment with feelings of embarrassment, apathy, disappointment, and pity.
Welcome to episode 18. I'm Angus Pete.
And I'm Pete Brown, and we are the Angus and Pete Show.
A place where you can listen to two guys chatting about that riveting world of customer engagement.
That's customer engagement, otherwise known as call centre, contact centre, customer service, customer experience, CX, or whatever else you're calling it this week.
If you want to know more about us, then check us out on LinkedIn. So, Pete, top of the show, what is in our post bag this week?
Well, do you remember episode 17, last episode, Steve on analysts?
Yep.
Very well received. We got lots of thumbs up and likes and reposts and requests for more CX Insider episodes. So watch this space. There will be more coming. And we've even had a few people asking to join the guest list. So you know who you are. We'll be in touch. We also had a contact from Pete H. from Washington, D.C. And Pete got in touch earlier this week and he contacted us via our private Signal chat group. And he said, Intel confirms Houthi assets at grid 14 Sierra 9823 remain operational and present a continuing threat to coalition maritime traffic. Strike Package Alpha will conduct precision strikes on designated HVTs commencing 0615 Zulu tomorrow. This is awkward. Well, thanks for the heads up, Mike. Angus.
We just had a glitch.
No, I don't. I think the world's full of glitches at the moment, isn't it? Apparently he's doing his best. Anyway.
We did have a very good question from Rado, who's in Warsaw. He said, I work for a reseller. I am one of the pre-sales technical bods. Sellers always come to me and ask me to do demos. Sometimes I get a brief, very rarely. But most of the time, can you come along and do a demo? To who? Mm-hmm. Don't know. When? Tomorrow morning.
Okay.
What do they want to see? Just show them the product. What are we trying to achieve? I don't know. I've got a meeting.
All right. Okay. Come along and throw something up against the wall and see if any of it sticks.
Exactly. And I think, what he said was that from his experience, more often than not, the buyer doesn't know what they want at that point either. It's so early in the sales process.
Right.
And quite often the buyer hasn't even asked for a demo, but the seller just thinks it's a bloody good idea.
Right. Okay.
It all goes horribly wrong. And then the poor techie gets all the blame.
Right.
So I think maybe that's a really good topic for today.
Yeah. So, Rado, I feel your pain. This is not an uncommon situation.
The first thing to remember up front, I think, is that it's not about the sales process. Now, you're talking to business stakeholders, and what's really important is that you've got to focus on what the buying process is. And demonstrations absolutely have a place, but you've got to think about who you're presenting to, why you're presenting to them, what you're trying to achieve. Because if you do them at the wrong time, it's going to cause real problems for you.
I absolutely agree. Demos are really important and a really powerful part of that whole engagement with a buyer. But in the wrong hands at the wrong time, as you said, they can cause you real problems. I remember a wise old sales manager once said to me, product demonstrations won't win you the deal, but they sure as shit can lose it for you if you don't think very seriously about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
I mean, maybe a starting point for this discussion is like, what do we mean by a demo? What is it?
That's a good point. For me, a demonstration is not a fixed thing that you do. It's not a place in the process. It's actually a tool. It's a very flexible tool that can be used to get your desired outcomes at any stage of the buying process.
It probably should be used at most stages of the buying process.
I think if you've got a good product, a good service, then you should be using it as often as you can in the buying process. The trick is to understand how you demonstrate a product or a service in the most appropriate way at those different stages. I've been doing some thinking about this. There are maybe 6 different types of demo.
Okay, that's a lot because most techies will tell you it's one type of demo. Get through as many features as I can in 30 minutes.
Yeah. Imagine you are meeting with a customer for the first time, or maybe you're at an exhibition and somebody walks onto your stand. You haven't had the opportunity to do discovery, but you need to show something. But the customer says, "Can you give me an idea? Can you give me an intro, a taster of what this thing does?" And it's possible to have product demonstrations for that eventuality. And they need to be concise, real-world scenarios. When they're at their best, they're generic. I like to use the word bite-sized demonstrations or illustrations of what your product does. And I've said this before, as CX sellers, we have something on our side, and that is that everybody's a consumer. Everybody has some level of understanding of what our technology does. So it's quite straightforward to have half a dozen generic scenarios in your kit bag, whether they be real product demonstrations or maybe videos, that if the CFO says, yeah, this is all very interesting, can you show me something that gives me a clue about what you do? Yeah, I can show you a quick scenario that demonstrates how a customer would engage with you to make a payment using a digital channel, or how a survey can be initiated after a telephone call, or how AI can help an agent do a more productive job by supporting them on their desktop. That sort of thing. Very light, very relatable, and more importantly than any of that, very quick.
So they've got to understand it off the back. So Granny test, if Granny doesn't get it, you're probably going to miss the boat.
Right, yeah. So simple. And the real trick is, don't get all your toys out. Don't get all your bells and whistles out. It's designed to be a conversation starter. You don't want to answer all the questions up front. It's, are you interested in this sort of thing or not?
Yeah, okay.
Keep it short, keep it concise, keep it real world. So that's the first one, the intro or the taster demo,
Okay.
the bite-sized scenario. What comes after an initial engagement and an indication of interest is more detailed qualification and discovery. Business discovery, technical discovery. The art of the possible demo is a really good tool to use when you want to have conversations with business people or technical people or operations people about what their challenges are, what their pain points are. It's very useful for buyers who don't know what they want. They recognize the problem, but they don't really know how to articulate the requirement. And it helps them to do that. So as well as showing off your product, it helps you to take a more consultative approach and use the demo as a conversation piece. So you're not trying to sell anybody anything at this stage of the game. You're basically using the demo as a tool to get them talking, to get them understanding, and give them a safe place in which to be educated and say what they want.
So this is a discovery tool if you think about that one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And the other thing to think about here is if you've got different stakeholders, change the language that you're using to fit your audience. Right. So please don't go with kind of 6-letter acronyms that you need a propeller on your head to understand. If you're talking to business people, the CFO or the CIO or those guys, they're not interested in it.
The other thing I'd say about the art of the possible demo, and this is counterintuitive for a lot of people, if you tailor your demo at this point, you can cause yourself problems. And I'll give you an example. I went and did an art of the possible session for the big group of car dealerships. And the salesperson that I was working with said, it's all got to be tailored. It's all got to be industry specific scenarios. And it's all got to be related to what they do. And this is quite early in the engagement, quite early in the process. And what actually happened was every time we showed them something relating to their business, they came up with half a dozen reasons why it wasn't going to work. Won't integrate to our dealer management system. We've got issues here. We've got issues there. It was too relatable.
So just raised objections.
Right, exactly. And at that point, I tried something else. And we went to, this time it was an insurance company, and we showed them the stuff we had done for the car dealer, appointment management, all sorts of things. They related to buying a car, but it wasn't so close that they saw the negatives of deployment in their business. They just saw the positives of, oh, that would be nice if I was a buyer looking for a new car. That's the sort of thing I'd like. So it's counterintuitive, but earlier on in the process, when you're doing those bite-sized demos, the taster demos, and the art of the possible, give examples and scenarios from other verticals because people relate to it. And it helps them to understand what's possible and how it might be applicable to their business. There is a point when you do need to start tailoring your messages. There is a point where you do need to start being very specific. And that's the sales demo. This is the one that usually causes the issue because what is a sales demo? What are we going to focus on here? Are we going to show them the tech? Are we going to get all of our bells and whistles out and show them how great our stuff is? And the answer is no. The sales demo is all about showing how your product addresses pain points.
I think that's a really important point. It's about the pain points. Now, if you think about this from a buying process perspective, at the end, there's got to be a business case.
Yes.
That business case is premised on a couple of key points. Ultimately, what you're thinking about here is demonstrating the pieces that are relevant to that business case so that people can tie the two together and they've got a line.
So the sales demo is about tailoring your messages for the buyer, absolutely focused on those pain points, supporting your proposal and your recommendations. And it also gives you an opportunity to position your recommendation, your solution, your product against your competition.
Yeah, deal with objections.
Now, hopefully, in the art of the possible demo, your audience has been broad enough and engaged enough to start teasing out some of those objections, to start getting a handle on where those bumps in the road might come. The sales demo, you should be in a place where you know pretty much what you're shooting at, and you're able to give a good account of yourself when it comes to addressing the pain points that the buyer's got. Typically, there's a proposal alongside this, so it brings the whole proposal to life. So when you're writing proposals, when you're writing responses to RFPs, think about how you're actually going to demonstrate that in business terms.
Yeah, that's important.
Right. So everyone's worst nightmare in a sales demo is some smartass at the back of the room making notes with a big bunch of pens in their top pocket and thick glasses looking at you, and you're looking at him or her thinking, they've been quiet. And then they hit you with a barrage of techno crap at the end of your business focused demo. Now, you've got to deal with it. And my strong suggestion is respect it, acknowledge those questions, do the best you can to answer them, but say, this is really important stuff. We need to have a special and specific demonstration workshop for the technical and operations communities to really deep dive into this stuff. It's not for today.
And we'll deal with all your questions in that session.
And then let us introduce the technical demo. Now, this is the demo that a lot of people try to do when they should be doing a sales demo. Mm-hmm. We've all seen it, right? And the sales guy has said, here's an overview of our proposal, and here's of the bullet points that you told us you wanted to achieve in your business outcomes when you issued your RFP. And we've put this proposal together, and here's an overview of the pricing. And now Angus, my glamorous assistant, is going to do a demonstration to bring all that to life. And you get up and do 2.5 hours of ear bashing around technology and XML and JSON and a whole load of other shit that no one cares about.
This is the technical ego phase, where engineers, with all the best intentions, I'm not saying for one moment that they are trying to absolutely derail the sales process on purpose. But if you go in and try and show just how much you know,
yes,
in 60 minutes, you are going to kill this.
Right. So a good strategy, therefore, is to separate the sales demo and the technical demo. It's not always possible, but again, take control. When you're setting up meetings, when you're discussing your processes and how buyers should run their processes, tell them, this is how we do it. We typically want to have a separate technical session. We want to talk to you about ease of use and flexibility and integration and implementation options. And we want to set expectations around where your benefits and where some of your challenges are going to come. It's all about making sure that you're using the right messages for the right community.
So I think there's another point to think that we should call out here. If you are listening and you're a pre-sales engineer, the onus is on you to go and drive this process. Go and educate the salesperson working with you. Go and educate the account manager of the account that's part of the team. You set the stages and set the scene.
And that's Rado's world, right? As you've mentioned, pre-sales technical people. As far as I'm concerned, any seller should be able to do an intro taster demo. Any seller who wants to should also be able to give a pretty good go at doing an art of the possible demo and having a discussion around some basic use cases. Really, what an art of the possible demo is a slightly longer, slightly more in-depth version of that taster demo. You're just building out on that stuff, but it's still very business focused. Salespeople that have to turn what is really a two-legged meeting into a four-legged meeting just because they need to bring a techie along to do a demo for them, I would say man up or woman up and take some responsibility. And salespeople that do their own demos are more credible with the buyer.
I think the other thing for the salespeople listening, you thinking about the intro and the art of the possible demo.
Yeah.
There's always this, oh, that's really difficult. I don't know how to do it. How am I going to get there? It's really, really simple. Go and have a chat to the engineer that is going to do the detailed stuff and say, help me put this together because it's going to save me dragging you into a million meetings.
And so you'll win a lot of friends and influence people, look good in front of the customer, what's not to like. So there we go. The intro taster demo, the art of the possible demo, the sales demo, and the technical demo. You'd think that was it, wouldn't you? Well, do you know what? There are two more. The fifth one is the look what you've bought demo.
Okay, this is all the stuff that you didn't see and
Right.
you've got new opportunities to make use of.
So how many times have you been involved in a deal where it's gone through, it's been signed off, and all the faces that you were familiar with during the buying process have changed? They've now handed it off to a team of people that have now got to work with on a daily basis all this stuff that someone else decided was a good idea to buy. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. There's a gap. There's a perception gap. So doing a look what you've bought demo is really about making sure that the buyer or the buying team at that point understand the scope of the purchase.
That's important.
It is absolutely important because a lot of our technology is very flexible, lots and lots of features and functions and packages and commercial ways of doing things and licensing models and la. This is the scope of what you've bought. This is what you've actually got to play with. And these are the full capabilities of that. And maybe additional capabilities that you haven't got right now, but you might want to think about.
This is really important. And I hadn't thought about this, but if you take this back to when we were talking about RFPs, which are vision documents.
Absolutely.
And what they implement is always a tiny subset of that. This is really key to expand their thinking and going, right, you might be only deploying 20% of what its capabilities are. Look what all you can do.
Right. So this is all about making sure that everyone's on the same page before implementation starts. And actually, it can be a bit risky. Because if the buying business hasn't aligned itself and hasn't made sure that things are clearly communicated, maybe you've got dissenters in the ranks saying, well, actually, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to go with another vendor. You need to manage it, which is why you need to be very tight on your documentation and your process throughout those other demo phases and the bits and pieces that go with it. But ultimately, the look what you've bought demo is a really powerful tool to align pre-sale and post-sale expectations.
I think it's just basic stakeholder management. And if you think about transformation, is scary for anybody. And if you are changing stuff and putting something new in, then this is a really good tool to take people on that journey.
Right. Then you've got the final one, the training demo. In our world, there's always some training. You know, you could call it product training. You can call it user training. It will typically go around maybe user acceptance testing and all those other things. It happens at different points. And quite often what we do is do what some people make the mistake of doing in the demo process, bolting into the technology, bolting into the features and the functions, look at all this stuff you can use. And everyone forgets the why. So what I've used on a number of occasions very successfully is before you take them right into the spaghetti of the technology and the detail, rerun the intro and taster demos for them.
So the ideal audience for this are the people that are impacted by the deployment of this.
And also technical people, system admins, business analysts, they like to see the context, the why are we doing this? So really you're using that to give your training context, remind everybody why this was a good idea in the first place. And also you're setting those people up to start thinking about optimization and adoption and other things that they can do. The sales process starts again from that point because we'll do this. We've implemented it. Oh, remember that little thing that Angus showed us? That little scenario. We could use that over here. We didn't ask for it. We haven't got the license for it, but let's go and have a think about the business case for that. And you start to drive adoption by using those little tasters in the mix wherever you go. When is a demo not a demo? When it's 6 demos. 6 different demos for 6 different places in the buying process.
6 different reasons for doing it. And I think
Right.
the last 2, look what you bought in the training demo, should be step 1 and step 2 of your adoption process.
Yeah, exactly. It goes in a cycle. So there you go. That's what a demo is.
Okay, so that's what a demo is. A demo is not 1 demo, it's 6. Get it right. I think the next logical follow-on question for this, right, I'm going to pitch up and do a demo. What should be in it? What's the anatomy? What are the steps? What are the phases? What's the content? What do we need to think about that?
The first thing to remember, we've just been through it, is know where you are in the buying process and select the right demo approach. Right. However, customers will try and blow you off course. And I think it's really important that you stick to your guns and follow. If you buy into it, follow that process. Rado alluded to this in his question at the top of the show. Don't assume that buyers know what they want to see, because they don't. In fact, quite often buyers will say demo because they don't have well-formed requirements. They don't really know what to ask for or how to articulate their requirements. So I would say be strong and be assertive when it comes to taking the right approach to a demo in the right place. Don't let a buyer drag you into a tech-laden, training fest before you've taken them through the intro and the art of the possible, because you'll lose the context and you won't get the information that you need to do a good job as you move through the buying process. So that's the first thing. Know where you are in the buying process and stick to your guns when it comes to the demo approach. Second one is know your audience.
That's really important. This one is really important.
Right. And in the context of this isn't about having lots of detail and lots of information. It's much more human than that. It's as simple as, if you go and speak to a business analyst who's booked out 2 hours for a meeting and is sitting there with a big list full of questions, you know what you're in for, and you should demo accordingly. Maybe it's probably a technical demo. However, if you've got 10 minutes with the CFO, what are you going to do, Angus? What demo are you going to use?
You better have done your research before the time.
Right. But only to point you to the right place in your library of bite-sized demos. What's really important in all of this is every time you can, show practical use. Show real-world scenarios that are relatable, that people understand, and demonstrate how the product fits into the daily world of either the buyer organisation or their customers, because that's what we sell, right? Make it interactive as well. Who are the 4 most important people in the room? I want their mobile numbers, so that when I ask them to call into our demonstration contact center, they get a personal greeting and they get all sorts of stuff going on. Make it interactive. Make it relatable.
So if I had to summarize this point in kind of 1 or 2 sentences, it is, think about it as a consumer interacting with that business. And that's what you want to show.
Absolutely. And on that subject, while you're thinking about what practical scenarios, real world scenarios you use in your demonstrations, bring them to life with stories. Buyers don't want to see bullet points on your slides anymore. In fact, they prefer not to see your slides at all. They want to hear, bring it to life, stories, memorable stories. Again, we have a bonus here, CX sellers. Everyone's a consumer. Think about what you did over the last 2 weeks, and I bet you there's a couple of stories in there about what's good about CX practice and what's bad. Use those stories. Some people have said to me, where do you get your stories from, Pete? I make them up. They're stories. Stories are there to do a specific thing, which is bring your recommendations, your proposals, your demonstrations to life.
Think about what happened to you in the last week or 2 weeks, and I guarantee you will find the start of stories in it.
Right.
Now, I had an experience over the weekend with a courier company. I have the best story that is going to end up in my catalogue of stories, with screenshots and scenarios that just illustrate a brilliant point.
Right. So there you go. We've all got these things going on all the time. And then when it comes to the anatomy of a demo, the final tip is, whatever stage you're at, even in the technical demo, every time you talk about a feature, talk about the advantages of it and talk about the business benefits of it. FAB.
I would probably add another part. You've got to tie it back to the pain that they're trying to solve. And I think that's missing in the FAB. When you think about the benefit has got to be tied back to the pain that you're trying to solve. Because if the customer doesn't have a problem, they're not going to buy anything.
Absolutely. One final thing. Just remember, it's a demo, not a training course. The objective is not to go through every feature, every function, whether they like it or not, until their ears bleed and they fall asleep through boredom or desperation or both. It's a demonstration, not a training course. So that's the high level anatomy of a demo.
I think that's really cool. So we've got types of demos. We've got the anatomy of a demo, What are the sort of the 3 or 4 questions for Rado that he should ask when he gets asked tomorrow morning by the salespeople saying, you need to do
Right.
a demo? What does he say?
Good question. Good questions. So let's keep it simple and let's keep it short. So I would ask some what I call sales manager questions. If I'm asked to do a demo, first question is, when do you want this and what are the timescales? And when they say in half an hour, you can decide how you react to that.
Yeah, if it was me, the answer would be no.
Right. Now, sometimes they'll say, I don't know, which gives you another clue. Well, go away and find out. How big is the opportunity that this demo is supporting? Now, the salespeople should know this. It stuns me how many don't, which tells you something else. You're early stage or you're dealing with a salesperson that hasn't got their bases covered. How big is the opportunity? It also helps you prioritize a little bit, but commercially, how big is that opportunity?
So what you're advocating at the moment, without saying the word qualification, is that you're qualifying.
Qualifying the qualifier. Is there a project? Is there a budget? But by far the most powerful question, and probably actually the only one you really need, is how does the customer or the buyer articulate their requirement for this demo? What do you mean? How do they articulate their requirement? What have they actually said to you? Oh, they said they want a demo. Right, okay. Have they said that? What is the context of that? Have they said, we want a demo, can you just show us some general stuff because we haven't got a clue what we're asking for? Have they asked for specific things? Have they asked for a technical bias? Have they said, we don't want to know anything about technology, we want... What are they asking for? How have they articulated it? And even if they say, we haven't got any sales requirements today, we're not going to buy anything for another year, but we'd just like to take a look at your product, that's a requirement.
And that's a valid requirement.
Right, absolutely. So that's what I'd say, Redo. Just test the salesperson, qualify the qualifier, and if they don't know the answer to some basic questions, tell them to go away and do their job and come back when they have, because you're a busy man who's got other things to be doing.
Straight away, you've got 25% of your time back.
Right,
because you will definitely trim out a whole load of those time wastes.
Absolutely. So there you go. So we've covered a lot of ground. How would you summarise the takeaways, Angus, for Rado and everyone else that's listening?
So a couple of key points. One, demos are tools, not destinations. So don't demo just for the sake of it. But I think demos are valid at all stages of the buying process. It doesn't matter where you are, initial engagement all the way through to adoption. And you've got to tailor them to where you are in that process and also the audience. That we covered the 6 types of demos. Know which one you need to use at that point in time. Whether it's intro taster or art of the possible up front, down into the more detailed part of the buying process, whether it's a sales demo or technical demo, and then post-sales, your post-sale demo and your training demos. Understand where the buyer's in their journey, and you've got to adapt to that. Don't dive into the technical detail too early, and use the right demo at the right time. The other one, sort of basic 101, understand your audience. Make sure you're using the right language, the right terminology, and you focus the demo to that person's role. CFOs are going to ask for a very concise intro demo. IT guys are going to definitely want to head towards the technical demo in that environment. The other one is, remember you're talking to people, make it interactive, practical, relatable, use real world examples all the time. And storytelling absolutely will set you apart. If you want to make an impact, use customer success stories, your own experiences, make it relatable to things you've experienced. It'll also make your presentation a lot easier to do. Talked about FAB. Make sure in your demo you're focusing on not features for feature's sake, but feature what its advantages are and what the benefits are of your solution, tied back to the pain. Is much more effective than delving into excessive technical detail. You're not trying to show off at this point in time. And prepare. Make sure you have got all the information that you possibly have got around what you think the requirements are from the customer, how big it is, what their timescales are. And if the details are unclear, go back to your sales team and ask them to get that information before you go.
Good summary. Rado, I hope that worked for you. If not, I'm sure you'll let us know.
He'll definitely play it back to us.
I'm sure he will.
Anyway, we'll be back next time with episode 19.
In the meantime, follow the Angus and Pete Show on LinkedIn for news and notifications. Message us directly. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you want us to talk about. Tell us if you want to be a guest on the show. And keep our post bag bulging.
The show is available on all your favorite podcast platforms. So please listen along, like, subscribe, and share to help us spread the word and feed our egos. Pete, I know you've been doing a lot of talking this episode, but you're not going to get off without going through the joke of the week.
Okay, so here's the inevitable demo joke. So the pre-sales technician is just about to start a software demo to a customer. So the sales guy is standing there in the room, bated breath. And the engineer says, right, I'm now going to show you every single feature of this product in order. And I'm going to start with, and then the customer interrupts him. Wait, I only need one feature. Can you just show me the one feature that helps me to get the job done? And the engineer says, sure, hold tight. That's feature 214. We'll get there in about 2 hours. I've actually been in that demo. I have actually been in that demo.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's less of a joke than bloody reality. We've all experienced it.
I think you're right. Anyway, cheers, Angus.
Cheers, Pete.
Thanks for tuning in to the Angus and Pete Show. Remember, it's based on the personal views and opinions of the hosts and their guests. If you're feeling aggrieved or litigious, take a chill pill. There's already enough stress in the world. Don't forget to follow our page on LinkedIn and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform for more episodes. We'll see you next time. Oh, and tell your friends.